Hi, and welcome to the YWAM Kansas City podcast. My name is Letitia, and I have the awesome opportunity to be in the School of Biblical Studies, the SBS, which is a 9-month program in which you go through every single book of the Bible inductively. And right now, I'm coming up on the 5th month mark. And I just want to share with you in this podcast a little bit about my experience over the last 5 months of studying the Old Testament. Now, before I get into kind of my experience and the value of studying the Old Testament, just want to share with you what these past 5 months have looked like as far as study in the Old Testament. So I had the task of calculating this up, and I did all the calculations in the hours. And over the last 5 months, our school, going through the Old Testament, we have studied the Old Testament for 1,350 hours. Now that breaks down to 60 hours a week, right? Over 22 and a half weeks, okay? Every single book of the Old Testament we've gone through. And yeah, that's pretty crazy. Isn't that crazy, Phil?
Yeah, that's crazy. So you maybe already said it. How many times have you read through each book?
We've read through each book at least 5 times through each book.
And that's just like a light reading, like a easy read, no like dense research or...
No.
That's a joke.
It's a good joke. Yeah, we just breezed through 5 reads of Leviticus. These are some in-depth reading that we've done and studying together as a school. And yeah, individually, each person over 1,350 hours in the Old Testament. And
that's not like adding up all the students, their hours, like adding each one individually. That's like you've spent that much time yourself.
That's me. That's my individual amount of time. Everyone else, probably, to be honest, it could be more because some of us, and myself included, if you add the hours you got up at 5 a.m. and went to bed at midnight, that's going to calculate even more than I said. But this is probably a good rough estimate of how many hours. We just take 60 hours a week that we've studied.
Wow.
And this doesn't even include the 9 hours a week of lecture that we've had over the last 22 and a half months. So just to give you a big picture of kind of what it's looked like in our time in the Old Testament. And honestly, for me, when I finished Chronicles, 1st, 2nd Chronicles was our last, Malachi, 1st, 2nd Chronicles and Malachi is what we did last week as we finished the Old Testament. And as I was finishing, I legit cried. I cried because I could just feel this sense of gratitude and dissatisfaction for having given myself to studying the Word in this way, but also this sense of gratitude for the opportunity to do so. And I just put it away, put the Bible away, and just kind of was so grateful to the Lord for this opportunity to get to do this and to give myself to particularly to this way of going through the Old Testament inductively. And I just see it as such a gift, and I'm a champion for it. So hopefully as you've been watching these episodes, you see that and you've gained some interest yourself. But I love the Old Testament, and and I'm so thankful that I got the opportunity to go deep in this way in it. And of course, for the rest of my life, I'll continue to. But it's just been a joy and just worth it. And this kind of leads me into what I want to share a little bit more about with you on this episode is there is, I think, in a lot of Christian circles, this sense that we really value the Bible. Like we're just you've got things like the Bible Belt. You've got places where you say we believe the Bible and whatever it says, and if the Bible says it, I believe it, and that settles it. Which is easy to say unless you don't know all the Bible says, right? And so I think when it comes to the Old Testament, we can not be as honest about our sense of value and appreciation for the Bible because many believers don't spend as much time in these books. And in order to gain the appreciation and understanding, we have to have read them and then taken it deeper to ask really what is God's heart in each one of these books? What did he want us to understand about him and to actually imitate of him because we've read them? And so I just want to share a few reasons I think that we can, as believers, sometimes just not give ourselves fully to studying the Old Testament, and why we can find ourselves in a place where we're actually avoiding it without even realizing we just aren't in these books, and we don't seem to appreciate and value the fact that we have them. And some of those reasons, one, I think there's that, the challenge with the word old, right? When you hear the word Old Testament, that could be a challenge. It could be a stumbling block for some people, thinking, oh, this is maybe not as important in my walk with Jesus because it's that former testament, right? It's old. And so maybe I don't need to spend as much time here because I actually, it's Jesus in the New Testament, in the Gospels and the letters of, the New Testament letters. Those are the ones that are telling me who I am as a Christian, and I need to spend more time in them. I think that ideology, that perspective can be a hindrance because what it's saying is that what the Old Testament has to say to me isn't valuable anymore since I'm reading the New Testament, the Gospels come. And so I think there's really could be a stumbling block for some people, is just that perspective that this is old, but now we're into the new, and I need to just stay fixated on the new. When in fact, if we go to the scriptures, the introduction of the new covenant comes in the prophetic books. We hear about a new heart. God is saying, I'm going to give you a heart of flesh for a heart of stone. We hear about that in the Old Testament, actually. And then we see the reality of it in the new and how Jesus fulfills it. So that one, I think, really can trip some people up in their giving themselves to the Old Testament. Another reason, I think, is because it's long. Let's be honest. Genesis week, my first week, Genesis week, it takes 4.5 hours about, roughly, to read that aloud in one sitting. And we talked about this in a prior episode. Now, if I'm going to choose between if I'm going to read Galatians or Genesis, Galatians takes about 20 minutes to read 6 chapters. What would you go for, Phil?
I know the right answer is I should read both. And Genesis is probably the easiest book in the Old Testament to read, if we're honest. One of the easiest. I'd go for Galatians. I mean, daily reading, I'm in the New Testament more often than you can get through books a lot faster.
Yeah, it's true, and it's understandable. We're more likely to go towards what's going to take a quicker, time to go through, to read, to give ourselves to, than a book like Genesis, which has 50 chapters, and it's going to take quite a bit of time to actually invest in it. And I think this can also be one of the reasons why we don't give ourselves to the Old Testament in the way that can really benefit us, because we're thinking these are big books, they're long books, and it's just going to take a long time. Another reason, I think, is because we don't see this immediate relevance. And we talked about this in the last episode of why we can get just challenged by different passages in the Old Testament, because we don't see this immediate relevance to our life. Like, how am I going to apply that right now? And I think this is also one of the reasons why we can get challenged about giving ourselves to the Old Testament, because we think, man, I don't see how this connects with me right now. I don't see the relevance of this in my life, and therefore I want to go to something that seems more familiar, more relevant, that I can immediately apply to my life. And I would like to say, even to that stumbling, that can be a stumbling block for people. That can trip you up in that way, and from giving yourself fully to the Old Testament study of it and God's heart in it, because you are concerned about whether it's relevant or not. You're worried about that. And one of the last ones I think that is really a challenge in the Old Testament and keeps a lot of people from giving themselves to it is that God is very clear and serious about sin. There is a clear understanding that you come away from that God he's going to judge, right? He's going to judge wickedness. He's going to judge unrighteousness, and the reality of how that judgment plays out often can cause people to say, I don't want to spend my time there because I don't know how I feel about that. Wrong ideas of who God is in their minds. And it can cause you to go, I actually don't want to give myself fully to that. I want to give myself more to what seems like more mercy coming through in the New Testament, when in fact in the Old Testament we really see how merciful, long-suffering, patient, good, and kind God is. So those are just some reasons I think we don't value the Old Testament in the way that we should, in a way that would bless us, because of how we can get tripped up in those things a bit. And I just want to share with you, after 1,350 hours in this wonderful, beautifully written, beautifully organized and constructed, God-inspired Old Testament, what were some things that the Lord has really just highlighted for me as big takeaways that I think would benefit you, and I hope would help you to want to go into valuing this more in your own personal life and your own personal devotions. One of the big things that I would say is a takeaway from me, even this time around with this study, is the commitment of God. What we see when we read the Old Testament, beginning in Genesis, right? Genesis 1 and 2 are so crucial to understanding the storyline of the Old Testament. But what we can come away from in looking at it, is God is so committed to his intentions for creation, his intentions for his people. God is committed. If you want to see commitment and what commitment looks like and what it means, read the Old Testament, because in it we get a glimpse of God who is committed. He doesn't relent. He doesn't give up. He is always pressing forward toward his purposes. Even when his people go astray, even when there's detours in the goal of which he's driving things toward, God never gives up on what he has purposed to do in his people, what he purposed for creation. And for those who are thinking, well, what is that? Right? You might be thinking okay, he's committed. What does that mean? Well, I think the best way we're going to see this is we start in Genesis 1:26, where we see that God is created, male and female, he's created in his image and his likeness. And he's given humanity dominion to rule over the earth. And in that, he's blessed them and told them to be fruitful. His commitment is toward the flourishing of humanity on the earth, to us living in our original design and intent that God had for us. And we see in Genesis 3 how sin interrupted that, how the fall of humanity caused us to lose sight of what God intended for us, to lose sight of his heart for us to walk with him, to talk with him, and to be his representatives on the earth, to reveal him on the earth. Humanity lost sight of that in going after what God said not to do. And so what we see throughout the Old Testament, I just constantly am blown away by, is God's commitment to say, I have not given up on what I purpose to do through creation, what I purpose to do through humanity. And it's just beautiful. It's like constantly you see God bringing things into alignment. And sometimes it doesn't look the way we think it should look, right? In the Old Testament, the ways that God chooses in order to bring about that intention and those purposes that he has are not the ways we would choose. And I know for me, that's what can confront things in our own heart, that often his judgments that we see are ways that he's bringing that alignment back. And that can be uncomfortable, that can really cause us to want to not read those passages. But if we give ourselves to it, we can see that it's actually revealing God's heart and his commitment, that he's not giving up, that where he could have said, I'm done, and had a right to say he's done, he's actually saying, no, I have purposes and plans, and I will continue to do whatever it takes to bring about those purposes and plans. So I'm blown away by the Lord's heart and commitment. Another aspect to this that has just, after all these hours, has really been impactful for me is just seeing again that the commandments of God, seeing how each and every one of these commandments that God gives reveal his character and nature. And in a prior episode, we talked a little bit about how some of these commandments, you don't see on the surface exactly what it may be. But as we go deeper into what the text is saying, we can see God's heart and his character behind the commandments that he gives. And I think that the commandments of the Lord that we see throughout the Old Testament, the things that he desires for his people, for us even, that these commands show us that God cares. It's his heart. He cares. He's a loving God, because he has decided that there will be things you can do and you can't do, things that he will permit and he doesn't permit. And that has revealed to us his love for others, his love for us, in that he says that I was going to say thou shalt not, but thou shalt not, right? Lie, murder, steal. These realities that God is saying no to actually reveal that the right relating that he wants between human beings is one of peace, generosity, not hurting one another, but actually surrendering and loving one another, serving one another. So I think the commands of God and his heart behind them in the scriptures have just been a huge takeaway for me personally. Another one that I would like to share with you is, that has really been big for me, is seeing that God is the only one capable to lead his people. Over and over again, God uses people throughout the Old Testament in areas of leadership. And some of them do well, really good. And some of them do horrible. Some kings, like King Ahab, are just horrible. And some kings, like David, are honorable. But at the end of the day, and at the end of the Old Testament, rather, you see that none of them quite measure up to the leadership that is necessary for God's people. That the only one capable of really leading his people into who they are supposed to be and the destiny that God has for them is the Lord himself. He is the perfect king. He's the perfect leader. And even as you finish up with Malachi, we sense that in the book of Malachi, that at that point that there is a need for a leader who's righteous. And there's prophesied that there will be one, that he's coming. And now that we've entered into the New Testament, we get the excitement and the joy of seeing the promises fulfilled that were given in the Old Testament about the one who was to come. And so as we look at just some of these, like I'm sharing my own experience of just things that have impacted me, of seeing God's heart and his commitment and his commands in his leadership over his people. It has just, for me, really shown me again in a fresh way why we need these books. There are aspects to seeing the big picture of the whole storyline that you won't receive unless you spend time in these books, unless we give ourselves to the prophets and to the Psalms and all of the Job and Song of Solomon, and even books like Leviticus and Numbers. When we give ourselves to these books, we're able to see the Lord's heart, and we're able to track with the story. So I just want to encourage you in a few things, final things here, of why I think you should just invest time in studying the Old Testament. I think that we see God's heart in a way through the Old Testament that we're not able to see in the New Testament. And what do I mean by that? We are able to see, tracking with the people of Israel throughout the Old Testament, the way that God is merciful toward them, that shows us the mercy of the Lord toward us, how God really thinks about us, how that he feels about us, and what he wants for us. He wants restoration for us. As we look at how God never gave up on Israel, even though again and again, cycle after cycle, they turned away from the Lord, they forgot the Lord, they broke his commands. As we look at their story, as we see how bad it got in Israel as they were following, not really following the Lord, had forsaken the law, it actually allows us to see how kind and merciful the Lord is toward us. That when we fail and we mess up and we go astray, that we know that the one who has laid down his life for us, Jesus Christ, that he is long-suffering. He is merciful with his people. And that we can trust him. We can trust him in our weakness. We can trust him in our failings. We can trust him in our shortcomings. And as you give yourself to the Old Testament, you get to see that reality of the Lord's heart. You get to see yourself in their place going, if Christ did not come into the world, this is what it would be like. This is what my experience would be like. Now, if you're not an Israelite, maybe different, but we can begin to see just what life was like for them without that revelation yet of what Christ had done. Now, if you just read the New Testament and you just spend all your time there, you miss out on that aspect of what has brought us to the place and what Christ has done. And so I just would encourage you to get into these books, because the whole story is your story. And if you're a Christian and you love Jesus, then this part of the storyline is your story. It's important for your understanding of all that he has done for you, all he's fulfilled for us, and all that he will do for us. So this is your story. You don't want to lose sight and miss out on your story that is written in the Old Testament. So I hope this was encouraging for you. Just me sharing a little bit of my own experience, and I I hope that it encouraged you to give yourself more fully to these books. And as you finish up maybe watching this, I would just encourage you maybe to pray as well. Just ask the Lord, Lord, which Old Testament book do you want me to read and study a little bit more than I usually do? Um, and He'll answer you. He'll guide you into what you should do, which book you should study. But I encourage you to just spend some time in prayer and ask the Lord, where do you want me to give myself to in the Old Testament, so that I can see your heart, your mercy in a greater way, your commitment in a greater way, and see your heart behind your commandments for us, for our good.
Yeah, I can. You got me fired up, Letitia. I'm gonna go back and I've been reading the Old Testament, but I think I'm kind of realizing one of the things that you have that we haven't had is a plan. Like I'm gonna start here. I'm gonna do this, and so that's so good. And you're convicting me, and as you're talking about this, because I would say I value the Old Testament, but do my actions show that? And I think I need to make plans to show otherwise. So
Yeah. Yeah, we have such a gift in what God has given us, and we want to appreciate this gift and see what God wants to reveal of his heart in these books. So I encourage you to do it. Pray, see what God says. Thank you for watching. Hope this encouraged you. Want you to come back if you really enjoyed it. Like, subscribe, share. We'll see you next time.